who now shall come forward to lead the charge, to advance the cause of reason? Is there anyone? Second only to my wish that I could bring back my dear wife Anne and my dear friend and comrade Arlene-Marie. Second only to that is my wish that there be someone here who will lead this little band of freedom fighters. Fighters for the most fundamental of all freedoms, the liberation of the mind. Arlene-Marie brought you close to the line of victory. Don't let the ball drop now. George cannot carry this burden forever. Please, someone, step forward to lead your comrades in reason.
Again, thank you all for coming. Now you can get something else to eat. Anybody want to say something? I think Tracy wanted to say something.
I can't possibly successfully follow the eloquence of Frank Lindsay, whom I have also known for some time. I'd like to note that a dear friend from American Atheists, David Kahn, is here today, but a special notice of Bart Meltzer, who has flown in also. Myself and Arlene had a special relationship with Bart. It was at the San Francisco convention. I've forgotten the date, the year. But Arlene and I walked into the hotel bar, and there was Bart sitting alone at one of the stools. Arlene introduced us to him, and we became good friends. We adopted him immediately, and we shared a lot of the experiences of that convention with him. We competed for his attention. She won, but we did share him. And the following year, he was second to the president of American Atheists, Ellen Johnson. He was a bit more than just her confidant, but they had a wonderful relationship for quite a while. But I first met Arlene through Steve Walker, who's also here today. I knew him through the First Unitarian Church. We'd become friends. And I believe it was New Year's Eve that he insisted I go out to Arlene, the home of Arlene and George, for a party. I was reluctant because I didn't know either of them at the time. But he almost demanded that I go, or ordered me to go. So I did. And I found on the door a note, "Don't knock, just come in. We're in the basement." And Arlene eventually ushered me in and took me downstairs, where she asked about my own personal beliefs. At that time, I had evolved from agnosticism to capital H humanism, which was a word anathema to her at the time, until Ellen initiated the Gamow gathering in Washington, D.C., the gathering of the atheists in Washington, D.C., of all the atheist organizations. I attended subsequently several parties in the basement of the home of George and Arlene. I probably saw more of Arlene more frequently than almost anybody here. The parties she had were uninhibited. In fact, she was as uninhibited as she was courageous. I was half uninhibited, the top half. But we became good friends. We began associating together, sharing dinners at Lafferty's, for instance, who did not survive either of us. and the Italian restaurant down on 2nd Avenue. And we go from there to the First Church, gay and lesbian really, program in the basement of that institution. It was mostly music. It featured Straight Ahead for some, and then that's where Straight Ahead got its start. They are now a band that has played at the Jazz Festival. She was as uninhibited as she was courageous. She was both. One of the atheist conventions, there was a gathering, a side gathering of leaders of the local groups, and we were invited to identify the things that our groups were doing. I thought, well, since Gary wouldn't initiate it, I did. And I started by listing a few of the things, like the Atheists Speak Up. And I just kept going, and finally it took me 5 minutes to identify all the things that Arlene-Marie had actually done and accomplished and were ongoing, which I, like Frank, hope will be continued now to this day. She had an influence on me. As I said, I was a capital H humanist at the time, having evolved from Gnosticism. But her influence induced me to join American Atheists, which is my primary non-religious identification today. I'm politically an atheist because everybody knows what an atheist is. You don't have to explain it. Philosophically, I'm a humanist, but that has to be explained. At any rate, it is thanks to Arlene that I am an active atheist today.
Speaking about Arlene being uninhibited, one of my prized possessions is a large nude photograph I have of her hanging in my bedroom. It's a beautiful photograph. It shows a very uninhibited, happy woman in her birthday suit.
My name is Alan Ardanowski, and I like to sing. Several years ago, I organized a couple of outings for my atheist buddies at a local karaoke bar. And in 2010, that was the second one of 2 events. It was a nice spring day in May, and we had a good turnout. 16 people were there. Peter was there, and Norm was there. But a year before that, on the first karaoke night I organized, it was in January, and the weather was not very nice. So we only had 3 people show up, and I was one of them. So the other 2 people were George and Arlene. They showed up in a snowstorm in January for my karaoke night. So I thank you for your support, George. Today I'd like to sing a song that Irving Gordon wrote. And Nat King Cole made a hit record of it in 1951. I think everybody here can relate to the song in relation to Arlene, but it's mainly a love song, and so I'm going to sing this as a surrogate for George. So when you look at me singing, think George singing a love song to Arlene. Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, Arlene, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Do 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 do. That's why, Arlene, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Thank you. One thing I forgot to say in introducing the song is that I was going to change up the words a little bit for this special occasion, and I hope some of you were able to recognize what I changed. There'll be a quiz later on.
Most of you don't know me. I might have met some of you on one or two occasions. My name is Jeannie Hansen. I happen to be back in 2001, the attorney who was in a meeting with a lady by the name of Nancy Eden or Ananka, you may know her as, and Tamara Jotham. I'm here to say thank you to this organization for the effort that it showed as a group to support that family and to support me as counsel and to be able to go forth with that case. Did I understand constitutional rights? Sure I did. I happened to even be present when I watched this woman be denigrated at a government meeting. 14th Amendment, major violation. Personally, I think it was also First Amendment violation with that crush on the lawn, but that's my view, and apparently the majority snuck a few cases in there that didn't allow us to win on that basis. But people came in from out of the woodworks that I didn't know, and a main focal point to help with that effort was Arlene-Marie. But it was also this group as an organization. It was Frank, who was an expert. Contact George. Encouragement to people at the right moments in time. I've gone on personally to a next generation. My daughter is sitting in the back. She's 12. And you know, because of what this group has done, both in Michigan and in joining with larger forces around the country, she has freedom now to think as she wishes and to look at a scientific view of the world and not be so inundated with certain points of view. And I thank you for that as well on a personal basis. Now, this is a double open your eye day for me and for my daughter Brittany. Because this morning we were at the memorial for Nancy Eden Ananka. Whoa. She passed on just within the past week. Jeez. And similarly, I was not in active contact with her, but intuitively picked up to touch base with family, and sure enough, my daughter and I ended up being part of the transitioning process, which occurred just last week. And I was also able to educate my daughter, and we drove through Carroll, Michigan. Now this was the document that we used to show the crosses that hit all the stores. Okay, and would you believe, Brittany, six of them, at least six of these same crosses are still sitting in the windows. Now, my daughter had the sense of mind to say, Mom, I wonder if people here still even remember the bases for those. It obviously still stands for something, and it doesn't feel good, was my interpretation. But it was an eye-opener for her as a young person to see that this is still going on. Now, I've also, on a personal, professional level, have gone on to learn advanced mediation skills. And a reason for doing that is to help organizations transition. And I came here just in time to hear Frank speaking to you, who I highly respect. And I know George, and I knew Arlene, and I respect them, and I respect you. And I don't think you should let this group just fall off. And so there's a solution. I know that in this group, there is a solution. And maybe it's a slightly more creative solution because nobody maybe wants to try to step in Arlene's shoes, so to speak. Arlene was a force to be reckoned with. I saw that immediately just by making contact with her. But within your ranks, there is maybe a coalition of people, maybe it's a combining with another group. There's a solution and there's alternate solutions. So if there's nobody who steps up to the plate, I am offering my services in memory of Arlene, in memory of the organization and what you've done for all of us, to at least lend my professional skills to help you do a collaboration effort to bring out that solution. And there are several of you who've been very dedicated. Some of you have been speakers here. A couple of you are still being quiet. I can feel it in the room. So set a date, set a time, if it can meet my schedule, or let me get one of my cohorts to come and help you. Go for it. Thank you so much, Marlene.
That's the kind of help we need. Okay, is there anybody else here who would like to say anything? This is one of Arlene's relatives.
Hi, my name is Pam. I'm Arlene's niece. And this is completely, I think, different than where everyone else is going with this, but it's just a tiny little tribute to Arlene's all quiet kindnesses always. And generosity. She was my aunt. I knew her my whole life. And she always was giving. She always gave so generously to everyone around her. She gave to me, she gave to my children, she gave to people she didn't even know. And so you people probably know that about her, and you know her as a fighter, and I didn't know that part of her. But what I knew of her was her kneeling down and giving gifts to my kids, and her kneeling down and listening to me when I was a little girl. So it's a tribute to that part of it, and that the world is just a little bit poorer that she's not here.
Great, thank you, Pam. Bart Meltzer, a longtime friend of both Arlene and me.
I'm the one Tracy was talking about. I'm Bart Meltzer. I'm the former Director of State Regional Operations for American Atheists, which is, simply put, I was the one who appointed and managed state directors for American Atheists for about 6 years. I met Tracy and Arlene in the bar 15 years ago. And that was my first convention for American Atheists in San Francisco. I met Dave Kahn there. I don't know if I met you or not, Frank. But I met Ellen Johnson there. I met a lot of people there. But as Tracy said, Arlene and I and Tracy, we hit it off pretty good. And the Sunday of that convention, Ellen always had a trip. And that particular trip was to drive up to the Lick Observatory. My entire drive, I had Arlene drive with me. She was in my truck, so we had a long conversation. We were just following the tour bus up with a group of atheists on there. And Arlene and I had a long conversation, but I was young and kind of naive. Not that I'm not now, but one of the things we were talking about was the state of the country in the U.S. And I made the comment that the U.S. is still the best country in the world. Anybody guess what Arlene said to me?
She said it wasn't.
I'm not going to repeat it. But that was a learning curve. And although Arlene worked for me, and it was a few years later, it's not really fair to kind of put that relationship like that, because I learned a lot more from Arlene than she learned from me. And it really helped me to be a better director in that position. Arlene was the most active state director, and of all the state directors that I was managing. for the 6 years that I was there. And you get a lot of directors that come and go. You get a lot of what I call the shooting stars. They come on strong, they're really great for 3 months, and then they flame out and they disappear. And but not Arlene. She was pretty consistently active the whole time. And she was very proud of this organization, Michigan Atheists. She always talked to me about Michigan Atheists and what she was doing. I'm familiar with the Anaka incident because that happened during my tenure. Arlene was very involved in that. I hope that somebody could step into Arlene's shoes and continue with Michigan Atheists. A lot of the times in a lot of the organizations across the country, a lot of the atheist organizations, the organizations are generally held together by 1 or 2 people. And everybody else is just there for the ride. However, I hope somebody could step up and keep this ride going for you guys, because you guys have one of the most active organizations there are in the country, and one of the most organized ones. So, it's tough shoes to fill, but it's not impossible. So I wish you all the best of luck, and it was an honor to know Arlene, and it's an honor to know you, George. Thank you.
She was my older sister. I have many, many warm and fond memories of the way she took care of me. She was tough. She was always physically strong, and she would jump into anything. The camping, George, and the sailing, all the physical Arlene that you knew, she was always like that. She was one of the fastest runners. She'd push hard on the swing, and she whatever she took on, she put her whole heart into it. And we really value her in our family, and we will miss her. And I need to say how warmed, George, I and all of us have been, that you have been in her life so long. Because you had, in our view, a really beautiful relationship. So.
David is our computer guru. If there's anything that you need to know about computers, David can answer it for you.
Thank you. All right, I'm not the best public speaker. I think the organization, because everyone's wondering if it's going to continue, there's no doubt in my mind that it will continue. But we're not here today about the organization. We can talk about that at the next meetup, which you can check out on the website, michiganatheist.org. We're here today about Arlene, who, for a nudist, I always thought was very well dressed. She kind of reminded me of my own grandmother in that way. You know, what is there to say? You can't really sum up a life in a couple words. Her actions, though, over her life have affected many, and none of us here today, I think, would be here without her. And just thanks to her. And I think that's about all I have.
This is Steve, a good friend of ours.
Round out the picture of Arlene a little bit in a way I think most of you were well aware. I'm sort of stunned to realize, talking to people, I knew her longer than most anybody else. We first met in the mid-70s. She came to a National Organization for Women convention, which I believe was at Oakland University. I was active as well. She explained to me, of course, that she thought it was a wimpy organization, not nearly strong enough. But she did come to the convention with George. Like George said, they were constant companions. In the 1980s, I saw her again. At that point, Thelma Morrell and I had organized the Humanists of Southeast Michigan. Of course, she explained humanists were wimpy atheists. So she called me a wimp many times. But as her relatives said, we became very good friends. She was a warm, loving human being. And I treasure my years of knowing her and George and the good times we had and the various events she organized that we participated in, going up to East Lansing for Darwin Day and this sort of thing. We went to Cleveland to see some exhibit and up to Saginaw. So again, she was really active, she was really dedicated. She had a hard exterior, but I think a warm, warm heart. Again, I don't worry about the continuance of Michigan Atheists because George is still here. If you don't realize the person who immediately preceded her, Henry Morgan, is here. So I think he thought for years nobody could carry on. And of course, he was the national secretary of American Atheists, but once he decided enough was enough, Arlene took the baton and moved forward, and I'm sure the same will happen in this case. But again, she was irreplaceable. Again, to have that hard exterior and go into public places where everybody was yelling and shouting, but to have such a warm, beautiful heart at the same time, I think is very extraordinary.
Yeah, I forgot to mention about Henry. Henry Morgan is the one that carried the torch for this organization for a long time. He did it when we didn't have computers. We did everything by snail mail. You wanted to make copies of something, you had one of these things that you turn like this. Mimeograph, right. How he kept this organization together for all those years is a mystery to me, but he did. Okay, I thank you all again for coming. You've been wonderful. And I again want to thank all the people who helped put all these decorations up. It took quite a while. The balloons and the table covers and so forth. And I thank all of you who brought food. Thank you all for coming and hope to see you again soon.